Hello students, welcome back. Let us continue reading the fifth chapter from your supplementary reader textbook Vistas. The title of the chapter is Should Wizard Hit Mommy? So we had read till page number 50 and we were on page number 51, first paragraph. So the last thing which we read was that in order to meet the wizard, Roger Skunk went through the dark woods under the apple trees, then he went into the swamp, then he went over the creek. So he followed the exact instructions which were given to him by the wise owl. And finally, he reached a wide house and he knocked the door of that house. So let's read what happened next. Jack rapped on the windowsill, and under the covers Joe's tall figure clenched in an infantile thrill. And then a tiny little old man came out, with a long white beard and a pointed blue hat, and said, "Eh, what you want? You smell awful." The wizard's voice was one of Jack's own favorite effects. He did it by scrunching up his face and somehow whining through his eyes, which felt for the interval roomy. He felt being an old man suited him. "I know it," Roger Skunk said, "and all the little animals run away from me. The enormous wise owl said you could help me." "Eh, well, maybe. Come on in. Don't get too close." Now inside Joe, there were all these magic things, all jumbled together in a big dusty heap, because the wizard did not have any cleaning lady. Why? Why? Because he was the wizard and a very old man. Will he die? No, wizards don't die. Well, he rummaged around and found an old stick called a magic wand and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. Roger thought and said, "Roses." "Yes, good," Joe said smugly. Jack fixed her with a trance-like gaze and chanted in the wizard's elderly, irritable voice. "Abracadabra, hocus poo, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, posies, pull an ear. Roger Skunk, you never fear. Bingo." So, what has happened here? Now, in order to make the sound effect of how the skunk knocked the door of the wizard, what Jack did? Jack knocked on the windowsill, the window platform, and Joe was thrilled by that sound. Now Jack continued that the old man with a long white beard and a blue pointed hat came out of the door. Then Jack made his favorite sound effect. How he did so? He did it by scrunching up his face and somehow whining through his eyes, which felt for the interval roomy. So Jack tightened up his face, he scrunched his face, and it appeared that he was whining through his eyes, which means that he had tears in his eyes. So his eyes were very watery. So basically he was showing different gestures, facial gestures, while narrating the story to his daughter. And he felt that enacting like an old man suited him a lot. Okay. Now Jack continued that the wizard asked Roger Skunk what he wanted, and this wizard told the skunk that he had a very bad body odor. Okay. So this Roger replied that he knew that he smelled bad and told him that all the other creatures living in the jungle or in the woods ran away from him. Nobody liked him. Nobody liked to play with him. Now he also told the wizard, Roger Skunk told the wizard that the wise owl had told him that the wizard could help him. So therefore he was there at his house. Now then the old wizard, what he said? He said that maybe he could reply, maybe he could help Roger Skunk, and then he asked Roger Skunk to follow him inside his house and not to get too close to him because he smelled bad. Okay, so then Jack describes to Joe that how the house of the wizard was really dirty from inside because he did not have a cleaning lady. Now, to this statement of Jack, what Joe asks? Joe asked that why was it so? Okay, so Jack then replied that because he was a very old man and also because he was a wizard himself, so he didn't need a cleaning lady for his house. Okay, then Joe again interrupted her father and asked that would the wizard die? To which again Jack replied that wizards never die. Then the wizard then he continued with the story that the wizard then started looking out for something, and finally he took out an old stick called the magic wand, and then he asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. And in reply, the Roger Skunk wished to smell like roses. Now here's a dialogue of Joe. She says, "Yes, good," Joe said smugly. So Joe was now happy and satisfied about the fact that Roger Skunk wanted to smell like a rose. Now what Jack does next? Then Jack fixed her with a trance-like gaze. So Jack looked at Joe in a kind of half-consciousness state. So he was trying to enact like the wizard, and he chanted in the wizard's elderly irritable voice, "Abracadabra, hocus pocus, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, boses, pull an ear, Roger Skunk, you never fear, bingo." So what has happened now? Jack said that these magical words in the voice of the wizard in order to sound more realistic to his daughter. Okay, let us read further. He paused as a rapt expression widened out from his daughter's nostrils, forcing her eyebrows up and her lower lip down in a wide, noiseless grin, an expression in which Jack was startled to recognize his wife finding pleasure at cocktail parties. And all of a sudden, he whispered, the whole inside of the wizard's house was full of the smell of roses. Roses, Roger Fish cried. And the wizard said very cranky, "There'll be 7 pennies." "Daddy, what?" "Roger Skunk." "You said Roger Fish." "Yes, skunk." "You said Roger Fish. Wasn't that silly?" "Very silly of your stupid old daddy." "Where was I?" "Well, you know about the pennies." So here in this paragraph, Jack relates the face that his daughter made to that of his own wife. And his wife, he says that his wife made such a face when she was feigning pleasure, means when she pretended to be enjoying a cocktail party. So this was a similar face that his own daughter was also making. Now then he continues with the story that the whole house of the wizard was filled with the fragrance of roses, and for this change of Roger Skunk's smell, the wizard demanded 7 pennies from Roger Skunk. Now, here, if we notice in the above lines, Jack had by mistake changed the animal's name from Roger Skunk to Roger Fish. So Joe corrected him later, and he said that what was the excuse that he gave? He said that it was really silly on his part. Old Daddy, he says that it was very silly on his part to call him him as a Roger Fish in place of Roger Skunk. Okay, let us read ahead. Okay, Roger Skunk said, "But all I have is 4 pennies." And he began to cry. Joe made the crying face again, but this time without a trace of sincerity. This annoyed Jack. Downstairs, some more furniture rumbled. Claire shouldn't move heavy things. She was 6 months pregnant. It would be their third. So the wizard said, "Oh, very well. Go to the end of the lane and turn around 3 times and look down the magic well, and there you will find 3 pennies. Hurry up." So Roger Skunk went to the end of the lane and turned around 3 times, and there in the magic well were 3 pennies. So he took them back to the wizard and was very happy, and ran out into the woods, and all the other little animals gathered around him because he smelled so good. And they played tag, baseball, football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, and pick up sticks. What's pick up sticks? It's a game you play with sticks. Like the wizard's magic wand? Kind of. And they played games and laughed all afternoon, and then it began to get dark, and they all ran home to their mommies. So here, just then Jack got a bit annoyed with Joe's expression which he was giving, and suddenly he heard some furniture rumbling downstairs. Now he realized that Claire, his wife, shouldn't be moving heavy things as she was 6 months pregnant, and they were going to have their third baby. Okay, now then the wizard, he continues with the story, and he says that then the wizard tells Roger Skunk to go to end of a lane and turn around 3 times, and when he would look in the magic well, he would find 3 more pennies. So this way he could get more money, more amount to be paid to the wizard. Then Roger did exactly how he was told to, and he got some extra pennies over there from the well. Now he then gave the pennies to the wizard and ran back to the woods, where everybody gathered around him because he smelled so good. He smelled of roses. Now then they all played, Roger Skunk and his all mates played a lot of games like tag, baseball, football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, and pick up sticks, and they enjoyed themselves a lot. Now here again Jo asks her father about the game's pick up sticks, to which Jack very casually he replies that it is a game played with sticks. Now she questions, sticks like that of wizard's magic wand? And then he says that Roger Skunk would play games and would laugh and enjoy all afternoon with his friends, and when it grew dark, all the animals would return back to their homes, to their mommies. Okay, so see here, the child is so inquisitive that she is even asking about the games the simple games which her daddy told that the Roger skunk used to play with his fellow animals. Okay, friends, let us read further. Jo was starting to fuss with her hands and look out of the window. At the crack of day that showed under the shade, she thought the story was all over. Jack didn't like women when they took anything for granted. He liked them apprehensive, hanging on his words. Now, Jo, are you listening? Yes, because this is very interesting. Roger Skunk's mommy said, "What's that awful smell?" What? And Roger Skunk said, "It's me, Mommy. I smell like roses." And she said, "Who made you smell like that?" And he said, "The wizard." And she said, "Well, of all the nerve. You come with me and we are going right back to that very awful wizard." Jo sat up, her hands dabbling in the air with genuine fright. "But, Daddy," then he said, "about the other little animals run away." Her hands skittered off into the underbrush. "All right," he said. "But, Mommy, all the other little animals run away." And she said, "I don't care. You smelled the way a little skunk should have, and I'm going to take you right back to that wizard." And she took an umbrella and went back with Roger Skunk and hit the wizard right over the head. "No," Jo said, and put her hand out to touch his lips. Yet even her agitation did not quite dare to stop the source of truth. Inspiration came to her. Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk back. "No," he said. The wizard said, "Okay." And Roger Skunk did not smell of roses anymore. He smelled very bad again. But the other little, oh, John, it's Daddy's story. Shall Daddy not tell you any more stories?" Her broad face looked at him through sifted light, astounded. So here, what has happened now? So now Jo had started getting bored with the story and she was no more interested. So she started looking out of the window. She thought that the story was over. On the other hand, what happened? On the other hand, Jack did not like women. It is told to us that Jack did not like women who used to take things for granted. He liked women who remained nervous. He says that Jack didn't like women when they took anything for granted. He liked them apprehensive, hanging on his words. So, Jack liked the kind of women who were very attentive and also who were very much engrossed. He would not like women who used to take things for granted. He liked women who remained nervous, very much worried and engrossed in his talks. Then he again continued the story, asking Jo to be a more little attentive, okay, more attentive to what he was saying, to what he was narrating. Then he says that Mommy Skunk asked Roger that from where was that awful smell coming from? To which Roger Skunk replied that it was coming from him and he was smelling that of roses. Now he added that his mommy, Roger Skunk's mommy, asked Roger that who made him smell like that? To which Roger Skunk replied that the wizard had done so. Now, the mommy skunk got very much angry. It's written here. She said, "Well, of all the nerve, you come with me and we are going right back to that very awful visit." So, of all the nerve is a way of expressing anger and disapproval towards a certain thing. So, the mommy got furious and ordered Roger Skunk to accompany her to the wizard in order to change Roger Skunk's smell back to normal. So Roger told his mom that all his friends ran away from him, no one used to play with him, and if he would again start smelling bad, then no one would again play with him. Okay, no one would like to play with him in the jungle. Okay, because he felt that his natural smell was very bad, very poor. Then what happened? Then the mommy skunk took out her umbrella and they went to the wizard's house, both Roger Skunk and his mother. Now, in that house, when the wizard opened the door, the mommy skunk hit him right on his head. Okay, with her umbrella. Then it's written in the text, "No," Joe said, and put her hand out to touch his lips. So she put her hand on her father's mouth to stop him from saying things which were not in favor of Roger Skunk. And then she started and then she stared at her father. Okay, because she was not liking this, that why the mother of Roger Skunk went to the wizard and why did she want to change that beautiful rose smell of Roger Skunk, because that smell of roses had given him friends. Okay, it was because of the smell of roses that all the creatures in the forest were willing to play with him. Okay, so uh, she says again, Joe says, "Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk back." So here she started imagining her own story and an inspiration came to her, and she says this dialogue only. Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk back. So she now tells about her version of the incident, the way she wanted it to happen, and she says about how the wizard would have hit the mommy skunk back and never changed Roger Skunk's smell back to natural smell, the bad smell. Now her father told her that nothing of that sort happened and the wizard changed Roger Skunk back to his normal smell and he did not smell of roses anymore. Now, there is another question which Joe pops up with. She says, "But the other little oh So here another question was about to pop up in little Joe's mind, but Jack stopped her and told her that it was his story, and if she wanted him to tell her any more stories, then she should keep quiet. So here we can see that how Jack the father is compelling his daughter to accept whatever changes he had made to the story, keeping aside and ignoring the melancholy, the sadness of the child. So then Jo kept on looking at her father and with great surprise, and she waited for the story to be continued. Let us read ahead. This is what happened then. Roger Skunk and his mommy went home and they heard woo oo woo oo, and it was the choo choo train bringing Daddy Skunk home from Boston. And they had lima beans, celery, liver, mashed potatoes, and pie. Oh my dessert! My for dessert. And when Roger Skunk was in bed, Mommy Skunk came up and hugged him and said he smelled like her little baby skunk again, and she loved him very much. And that's the end of the story. But Daddy, what? Then did the other little animals run away? No, because eventually they got used to the way he was and did not mind it at all. Okay, so here, after some time, when Roger Skunk and his mom were going back home, when they went back home from the wizard's house, after changing the rose smell to the normal smell, they heard a woo sound. Okay, woo sound as his father, that was of the train, as his father arrived back from Boston. Now, then it is told by the narrator then all of them had lima beans, the family of Roger Skunk. They all had lima beans, celery, liver, and mashed potatoes for dinner, and pie o my for dessert. Now, later that night, when Roger Skunk was sleeping, Mommy Skunk came to Roger Skunk. She hugged him and told him that he smelled again like her baby, her own baby, like he did before. And that she also tells him that she loved him a lot. And with this, Jack ended up the story. Now, Jo again asked a question from her father. She asked that, did the other animals run away from Roger Skunk again? And to this, Jack replied, no, because eventually they got used to the way he was and did not mind it at all. So he says that no, they didn't run away from Roger Skunk anymore because they slowly got used to, they got accustomed to the smell of Roger Skunk. So they did not feel like running away anymore. They played with him, they played with Roger Skunk happily. Okay, let's read further. What's eventuality? In a little while. That was a stupid mummy. It was not, he said with rare emphasis, and believed from her expression that she realized he was defending his own mother to her, or something as odd. Now I want you to put your big heavy head in the pillow and have a good long nap. He adjusted the shade so not even a crack of day showed, and tiptoed to the door in the pretense that she was already asleep. But when he turned, she was crouching on top of the covers and staring at him. Hey, get under the covers and fall fast asleep. Bobby's asleep. She stood up and bounced gingerly on the springs. Daddy, tomorrow I want you to tell me the story that wizard took that magic wand and hit that mommy. Her plump arms chopped forcefully, right over the head. No, that's not the story. The point is that the little skunk loved his mommy more than he loved all the other little animals, and she knew what was right. No, tomorrow you say he hit that mommy. Do it. Now, what has happened here? When Jack said that, eventually everybody started liking Roger Skunk. He says here that no, because eventually they got used to the way he was and did not mind it at all. So this girl Jo is not able to understand this word eventually. Okay. And because she had heard this word eventually for the first time. So she asked what eventuality was, to which Jack told her that it meant inner wild. But Joe thought that what mommy skunk did was not right, and she said that what the mother skunk did was stupid. But here Jack took it personally, and he said no, because somewhere it is told to us that somewhere he was relating it he took it personally, and he was relating it to himself and defending his own mother. Okay, then Jack told Joe that he wanted her to take a long nap, and he adjusted the shades so that no light came in. Okay, no light disturbed her while sleeping. Now he then went very softly to the door and acted, pretends it is written. So he just acted as if Joe had slept, but when he turned around and he looked back, that girl was awake. Okay, Joe was awake, and she was staring at him and was sitting on top of the covers of her sheet. So Jack again told her to go to sleep, and as she was also disturbing her brother Bobby, who was already asleep. Okay, now then she stood up. What she did? Then she stood up and started bouncing softly on the springs of her bed. On the bed, she started bouncing. Now again, she came up with a suggestion. What was that? So while jumping on the springs of the bed, on the bed, we can say, she asked her father to tell her a story the next day that the wizard took his magic stick and hit the mommy right over her head. And while saying so, she did a chopping action with her plum hands, as if she was herself hitting the mommy on her head with the magic wand. Now then Jack explained to her. He tried to explain her that this was not what the story said. So he tried to explain her that the story which he narrated gave a message that Skunk loved his mother more than any of the other animals in the woods. And he also said that his mother knew what was right for him and what was wrong. Then, as he was explaining Joe about the story, she again started insisting that the next day he would have to tell her a story like the one she wanted, with a different ending, of course. Okay, so she says further, do it. She kicked her legs up and sat down on the bed with a great heave and complaint of springs, as she had done hundreds of times before. Except that this time she did not laugh. Say it, Daddy. Well, we'll see. Now, at least have a rest. Stay on the bed. You're a good girl. He closed the door and went downstairs. Claire had spread the newspapers and opened the paint can, and wearing an old shirt of his on top of her maternity smock, was stroking the chair rail with a dipped brush. Above him footsteps vibrated, and he called, John, shall I come there and spank you? John, shall I come up there and spank you? The footsteps hesitated. That was a long story, Claire said. The poor kid, he answered, and with utter weariness watched his wife labor. The woodwork, a cage of mouldings and rails and baseboards all around them, was half old tan and half new ivory, and he felt caught in an ugly middle position. Now, this is very important. And though he as well felt his wife's presence in the cage with him, he did not want to speak with her, work with her, touch her, anything. Okay, so Joe now started throwing tantrums, She started kicking her legs, and she also complained about the springs of her bed as she had done before many times earlier. Okay, but this time what was different? This time she was not laughing or joking while doing so. Okay, so she was being a bit stubborn that day for changing the end of the story, for telling a different story, a story which she wanted, a story which she wanted to be narrated in her own way. Okay, with the ending which she wanted. So Jack told her, Joe, to be very patient and go to sleep, and that he would see and think about the suggestion given by Joe about the story that he was to tell the next day. Now, he then asked Joe to stay in the bed and closed the door. And then he went downstairs and saw his wife Claire. Now, what she was doing? She had opened the paint can. There were newspapers which were spread around, and she was wearing an old shirt of Jack over her maternity dress. Maternity smock, it is said. So she was wearing one of the shirts of Jack over her maternity dress. So Claire was painting the chair rail when suddenly Jack again heard footsteps from Joe's room above. And then he shouted that, John, shall I come up there and spank you? So he warned her to sleep, else he would he would go upstairs and she would be getting some beatings from him. Now the sound of the footsteps then stopped. The footsteps hesitated, it is said, so that the sound of the footsteps now stopped because she was afraid of getting some beatings from her father. Now then Jack's wife says that it was a long story, okay, that he was telling to Joe. Now this statement is in a way sarcastic. It is a sarcastic remark that conveys Claire's complaint against Jack for not finding enough time to help her. And to this complaint, Jack replies, the poor kid. By poor kid, he meant Joe, and as Jack was feeling very tired, he just sat and watched his wife do all the work. Now, then he notices that the wood is half old tan and half a new white color. Now, looking at the woodwork, the moldings and rails and baseboards, as it is written in the text, Jack here feels like a cage surrounding him. Okay, he says he felt caught up in an ugly middle position. Now, what do we understand from this statement? It is a very important statement. See, Jack felt that he was caught up in an ugly middle position as Jack wanted to finish the story quickly, which he was narrating to his daughter, and also he wanted to go downstairs to help his wife Claire in painting the furniture. But Jack was neither able to satisfy his daughter Joe, as she wanted a different end to the story, and also um, he was not able to make her sleep. And then, without being able to make Joe sleep when he reaches downstairs, Claire also, his wife, complains him for not being there and for having taken so long. Okay, so he was tired and bored, dejected, and he was thinking that although both of them, both Claire and Jack, were caught in a cage like situation in their marriage, but there was no solution to it. Okay, and at the end he says neither did he wanted to speak with Claire nor work or touch her, so he wanted to do nothing at all. So basically Jack feels stuck in between his present unhappiness and bitterness in an unfulfilling marriage that he was in, and also He was worried about the future promises of more children, the third child which they were expecting. Okay, and he was more worried about this, the future enclosed responsibilities which he was going to get with the birth of the third child. So this is it about the chapter. um, Please go through the entire chapter very carefully, and as I instructed before, do mark the difficult words and find out their meanings. Also try to make efficient use of those words which you discover are new to you. Jot down your doubts to be discussed in the next online session. Thank you.